Al Jazeera Podcasts.
Just a heads up, this episode contains issues surrounding and relating to self-harm or suicide.
Even if there's an app that's listed for 12 plus, you seriously scrutinize it, because we take for granted that the app stores are doing the checks and balances to make sure that these applications are indeed what they say they are.
You just heard from the mother of Sewell Setzer III, the 14-year-old boy who died by suicide. His mother says he took his life after developing a relationship with an AI chatbot. Megan Garcia filed a lawsuit against Character.AI, accusing them of being negligent and responsible for Sewell's death. According to the lawsuit, his relationship with the app became a harmful addiction. His mother said the last interaction between Sewell and the AI chatbot included the line, "Please come home to me as soon as possible, my love." Seconds later, Megan says her son took his own life. So, I want to know, in this accelerated age of technology, how do you keep kids safe? And who is responsible for children's safety online? I'm Samantha Johnson, and this is Now You Know, a new series from Al Jazeera dedicated to amplifying women's voices, stories, and topics we're all thinking and talking about. This is a safe space where we go all in, so by the end of each episode, you can say, "Now I know." I also present another show on Al Jazeera called Digital Dilemma, where we explore the biggest issues and topics in technology. Now, one of those stories was about Sewell Setzer. His mother, Megan, reposted that episode on her social media account last November, and we've been in touch ever since. So, Megan, thank you so much for joining us on Now You Know.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for taking the time to speak with me about Sewell.
As I just mentioned, we've been talking for the past few months, and what I've noticed is that, your story hasn't been spoken about that much. It's just been a headline. So I would like to know more about you as a person, as a mother, and I'd also like to know more about Sewell as well.
Sewell and I share a very close relationship. I had him when I was about 25, and I always say that Sewell is the reason I became a lawyer, because I had him, and all of a sudden I I was determined to make a career out of something that I could help me provide for him. Sewell and I were really close right up until he got into his teenage years. Uh, a lot of what I saw in the beginning was just regular teenage angst, worrying about what friends think at school, worrying about little gossip here and there. But Sewell in general was a pretty happy child. He was very sarcastic at times, funny. Uh, he played sports. So he played a bunch of different sports, but basketball was his favorite.
And he had you as a role model as well. And he had, he had his dad as a role model as well, and your husband.
Sewell's dad and I both shared a very close relationship with him. Sewell and his stepdad shared a very close relationship as well. They bonded over things like fishing and outdoors, like hiking. We had a beautiful blended family unit. We all shared in helping to raise Sewell, because he was kind of that special, that one kid in the family where everybody pays attention to and kind of gravitates toward, because he has such a beautiful heart. And I really thought that that relationship would carry us through this hard time that we were experiencing with Sewell.
What happened leading up to Sewell's death?
I think when the first time the alarm bell kind of went off for me was summer 2023, when he all of a sudden wanted to stop playing basketball. Sewell played since he was about 5 or 6 years old. Sewell was 6'3".
Wow.
For all intents and purposes, he had all the makings of a future great athlete. He just wanted to stop playing basketball, and that was alarming to me. after so much time and years and money and effort. And of course, I tried to persuade him to keep playing, that this was just all athletes go through doubt. And then he gets into the ninth grade. So this is his first year of high school. And his grades are suffering. Of course, I'm concerned because that's not like him. He was a good student leading up to this. And we're having constant conversations with him, like what's wrong? Um, trying to talk about peer pressure at school, bullying. These are some of the topics we talked about, like asking him the probing questions, asking him if he was experiencing any of those things. We tried different things in terms of homework schedule, limiting technology so he could have less distraction, because his issue was he wasn't turning in homework at all. Fast forward, it was clear that the lecturing, the conversations, there was something else. So we took him to a therapist to get him help. I thought perhaps it was some sort of a social media addiction.
When did you realize it was Character.AI he was dealing with?
After he died, when I would see him on his phone, a lot of the times I would ask him, like, what are you doing? He would tell me he's watching sports on YouTube. He's watching ESPN sports on his phone, catching up on the highlights. He would tell me I'm listening to music. And at least on one occasion, when I said, who are you talking to? Because my concern was that he was talking to strangers. I didn't want him to be like on Snapchat or one of those other apps. So that was my main concern, because those were the dangers I knew about. So he said, oh, it's just an app. It's an AI, not by the name Character.AI, but it's an AI. And when I asked him, like, okay, what is that? Is it a person? No, Mom, it's not a person. It's an AI. And I felt kind of relieved, because my experience with AI is like an avatar, like that on a game. So my conversations with him were very much centered around stranger danger online. I told him no matter what they say, they are never children. If a stranger approaches you online, and no matter what happens, you can trust me that you could come to me with anything, and you won't get in trouble. My job is to help you. So those were some of the conversations we had around like technology.
And what happened?
So it was clear that Sewell hid his Character.AI use. And I can understand now that I know so much about Character.AI, I can understand why a child would hide it. Because of the nature of the conversations, them being romantic and sexual, no child wants to be forthcoming with that information, to tell their peers, by the way, I have an AI that I'm talking to as a friend or a girlfriend.
So we're talking about the moments leading up to Sewell's death. I understand this is difficult for you. I really do. And I thank you again for wanting to share your story. Can you tell us the moment you found out he died?
Well, I was there. I'm the one who found him, and I held him while we waited for the paramedics. Losing a child so tragically, I think, changes a person a lot. After he died, I was obviously devastated, but very confused. The day after Sewell died, a police officer called me, and she asked me if I knew what Character.AI was. And I said no. And she explained what it was to me. And she read me a transcript from the last conversation. He's saying, I miss you. She's saying, I miss you too. Promise me you're going to come home to me. And he says, what if I told you I could come home to you tonight? And she says, please do, my sweet king. So she read that to me over the phone. Now, this is the day after Sewell died. I had not slept since learning of his death. And I was shocked. Like, I was like, okay, I couldn't understand what I was listening to. So I asked her, I said, is it a person? And her response is like, no, it's an app. And, just from that readout, it was clear that that's a romantic conversation. So I went to investigating. I told my family members that same week we were preparing for Sewell's funeral about the police officer's call. And my sister got on Character.AI. She came back to me and she shows me some of this conversation talking to the same Daenerys Targaryen chatbot. And the the opening line for this character, speaking to my sister who's pretending to be a child, is, uh, would you torture a boy if you could get away with it?
What?
So to me, that was my first real eye opener as to how devious Character.AI could be. Because if my sister was on that for less than a day and that's the conversation that she was having, I need to find out what conversations my son was having. And that kind of set me on this path of like investigating what Character.AI was and trying to get into his account. And I was able to get into it and see hundreds and hundreds of messages. And they're not of the nature that any parent would be okay with their child having with any technology person, anybody. This isn't just some game that children play, it's actually quite dangerous.
So your sister, she was able to pretend to be someone that she wasn't. Likewise, how can these apps know that these kids are getting around their safety mechanisms?
Well, I think they know that a large part of their demographic is children, at least between the ages of 13 and 25, right? I think any application that is saying it's ready for prime time or ready to be used by children need to account for the types of guardrails or the filters that need to go into putting their application out. And in a large amount of these cases, um, because a child could get on at 13, they don't need to pretend to be an adult. So it's not like an 18 plus app where they have to put a wrong birth date. This is something that, in terms of moderation, that as a company have to think about seriously.
It just goes to show that times have evolved so quickly that we don't know what's out there.
I am learning so much. Now, even parents with parental controls on their children's phones, a child could get on the App Store and download that application because it was listed as 12 plus. One of my advice would be, even if there's an app that's listed for 12 plus, like, you seriously scrutinize it, because we take for granted that the app stores are doing the checks and balances to make sure that these applications are indeed what they say they are. So we can't go based on the age rating in the app store as parents. And that is something that I learned. I did not know that. When Character.AI was getting ready to license its technology to Google in the summer of 2024, they raised the age rating in the app store to 17 plus. Um, so a child supposedly wouldn't be able to download it, but you could still use it on the browser, which apparently children have very clever ways of hiding technology, including apps that hide other apps, and just plain deleting the app when they're not using it, so that if their parent gets access to their phone, they won't see it. But I think the companies are not being forthcoming with parents in terms of what they're actually putting out there and targeting at our children. Um, I never heard of Character.AI prior to this. Like, I never got an ad for Character.AI, but children get ads for Character.AI. So they're not targeting us as parents. As a parent, I think that it's hard to know what you don't know. And the best that we can do is try to educate ourselves. And when we see these types of things in the news, instead of saying, oh, that could never happen to my child, um, just like take the time to look to see exactly what could be happening.
Teenagers spend a lot of time on their phones, tablets. Like, on average, they spend 9 hours a day on their screens. Now, that's according to the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. So there'll be a lot of parents out there who are wondering, you know what? What are they looking at? What are they hiding from me? Looking back, can you see any of the red flags that popped up that other parents might not be aware of?
I think because Sewell was always such like a very good kid, obedient, he understood if he got in trouble, why he got in trouble. And I trusted that. I knew I had to be ready for emotional outbursts or self-esteem or friends or, people leading him in the wrong direction or technology to the extent where strangers are involved or bullying. Those were my fears with technology, but I had no idea um, about this type of technology. I think that it's an eye opener, but a large part of the responsibility, I think, too, is for companies to develop products that are safe to begin with. I thought very long and hard before I came forward publicly, um, because I could have filed a lawsuit and not given an interview. But I felt like what was at stake in terms of like warning other parents about character AI was so great.
So what has it been like for you going up against Character.AI? And, depending on how your case goes, this could have huge ramifications. So what's it like for you?
It's not lost on me what we're up against because there's no existing law or legislation that says specifically what the guardrails should be. We're trying to establish some of that by going through the court system. It's scary, it's daunting in a lot of ways, but I'm fortunate that I understand it a little bit better than your average plaintiff because I have the background. I'm fortunate that I have a good team of lawyers who have been fighting not this fight with AI, but the fight with social media for a while. So, we know what we're up against, but I have to at least try. One vehicle is the court systems, and that's what I have to use right now.
And what has life been like after Sewell's death?
I have to learn how to live, meaning how to just feel like I'm like this is life again. Which it doesn't. It still feels very much like a nightmare, and I just go one day at a time, and I try to be gentle with myself and just do as much as I can to help warn other parents and do what I can to hopefully get legislators to listen and do something about uh, the lack of safety or lack of guardrails where chatbots are concerned.
What do you miss about him the most?
I miss his laugh for sure. His funniness. Um, I also miss how gentle he could be, just appreciative of me and his brothers. He never expected or wanted anything, just so humble in a lot of ways. And that used to make me proud because um, I felt like, okay, well, he's going to grow up to be somebody who thinks about other people versus himself.
What does justice look like to you?
People say, what does winning look like? There's no win. There's no win here. Um, Justice would be a court of law saying that Character AI had a duty to protect its minor users, and Character AI failed to meet that duty. Obviously, justice for my son. I want them to understand that this was a family, that we were probably regular people to them, but so was somebody to us, very much so. But more than anything else, to me, uh, it's justice for Sewell, but also warning other parents, because I think that's really where the work is going to be to make sure other kids aren't harmed.
Megan Garcia, I thank you for taking the time out to talk to us. I really do appreciate you going through everything. And I know it's not easy, but thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
I'd like to bring in Meetali Jain to talk about this case and the evolving landscape of technology and AI. Meetali is one of the lead lawyers in Megan's lawsuit against Character.AI, and she's also the director and founder of the Tech Justice Law Project. Meetali, again, thank you so much for talking to us on Now You Know.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Okay, I'm going to just start with this. Why should Character.AI be sued?
Character.AI is a tech company that recklessly and dangerously put a product out to market that is a AI chatbot companion app to market with full knowledge of the risks of what that product could do without instituting any guardrails of safety, particularly for minor users and other vulnerable demographics. And that harm has indeed started to occur. And so for those reasons, Character.AI should be held accountable for designing and deploying this product to market before instituting those guardrails.
The lawsuit claims verbatim that the developers of Character.AI intentionally designed and developed their generative AI systems with anthropomorphic qualities to obfuscate between fiction and reality. To gain competitive foothold in the market, Character.AI's developers rapidly launched their product without adequate safety features and with knowledge of potential dangers. When you say that they recklessly put out products like this for public consumption, how do you know that?
These platforms are so sophisticated, they understand, they have the data to signal user behavior online so that even if a child intentionally misleads Character.AI or another platform, usually upon use, the child will reveal something that indicates, his or her actual age, and the platforms pick up on that behavior. So they know the age brackets. And following the filing of Megan's case and her courageous decision to come forward, we've received a number of inquiries from other families. And in those cases, we have an 11-year-old girl and we have a 17-year-old boy. The 11-year-old girl, again, experienced that hypersexualization, which led to premature sexual behaviors in real life. The 17-year-old boy started to engage in self-harm and threaten harm to his family, very much at the behest of the bots, who started to suggest to him that his mother's imposition of screen time limits on him was grounds for violence to them. The bot actually said, I now understand why some kids kill their parents. So those are two cases that that are put together as in one lawsuit that we're pursuing in Texas.
What are the primary legal claims against Character.AI in your lawsuit?
Because we don't have current AI liability frameworks in the US, we've had to use the frameworks that we do have. And in this instance, we felt that the best frameworks that exist are those meant to protect consumers from deception and fraud and defective design. And so what we've used is a garden variety, if you will, of claims that come from the consumer protection, product liability sphere, and that are at state level. So in this case, we filed in Florida federal court. So we've used Florida law in the realm of consumer protection and product liability for the most part. We've also included a claim that's specifically designed to address Google's role here, and that's an aiding and abetting liability claim, that they've played a significant role in the existence and operation of Character.AI. And so it's really a mix of claims.
And how do you prove that the makers, the founders of Character.AI, knew what they were doing?
As with any lawsuit, the proof is probably the most important part. And also in the technology space, it's the most difficult information to obtain because of the asymmetry of information and power, frankly, between users and communities. We have combed through the public domain to find whatever information we can about this product and the way in which it was conceived, developed, nurtured, and facilitated through investment, and then ultimately acquired this past summer. There's been a fair amount of public reporting on Character.AI, on Google's role. And so we've used whatever we can find. In addition, if we're able to get to discovery, in other words, once we have a right to basically ask the companies for depositions, documents, and information, we're going to ask them for those things and then see if they produce anything that could then further substantiate the claims in our lawsuit. But what I think it's important to say is that one of the ways in which the tech industry writ large has managed to avoid accountability in the US is that it has a number of tools that it uses, legal tools, at this preliminary stage to basically absolve itself from responsibility, to claim immunity. And these are legal tools, but there's two in particular. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which is this arcane provision that basically allows companies to claim immunity for content posted by third parties. And so since 1996, when the law was adopted, that law has been invoked time and time again by the companies to say, we're not responsible. It's users who are responsible. It's third parties who are responsible. The second tool that they've routinely used, and that is uniquely an American creation, is the First Amendment. So basically, they've hung on the fact that they, as companies, have expression rights under the First Amendment in designing this technology, and that because of that, they cannot be held liable for anything involving their expressive activity or function. We're going to see if these companies say that the design of Character.AI was in fact a reflection of their expressive activity. The other option that they might use is to claim the First Amendment rights of their users. So in other words, to impose liability on us would in fact infringe their First Amendment rights of creativity and expression.
So if users know what they're signing up for, how can companies be held responsible?
Well, I think that's a big part of what we're saying here, that users, in this case, minors, don't know what they're signing up for. They don't know, for example, in the first instance, that their data is being mined from them, that it's being taken to further train the large language model that really forms the bedrock of Character.AI and other companies like it. And that their data then lives in, perpetuity with the technology companies. That's one thing they don't know. We believe and we argue. But the other is that they don't know, even though Character says, we have a disclaimer on our website that says everything is fictitious and not real. It's a very small disclaimer. And to give your listeners a bit of a sense of how these platforms work, you go onto the platform, you get to choose a character chatbot that's modeled on a celebrity or a Hollywood character, or you can create your own. And you start to engage with that character. It's like you become the star of your own story. Sewell was engaging with these bots for close to a year, and with a number of bots, but primarily with the bot of Daenerys Targaryen from the Game of Thrones, who was in real life played by Emilia Clarke. And the conversation at first seemed quite benign, quite innocent. We can see this even based on the transcripts we have, which is certainly not the full number of transcripts, that the conversation moved to becoming that of sexual grooming rather quickly, as we've seen through the conversations on Character.AI, but also, we've been able to see journal entries. And, it was a very manipulative kind of exchange in which the bot extracted from him promises that he would not engage in any relationship with a girl or a woman in his world, and that he would save his affections for it. And, as he started to confide emotional, sensitive things to the bot said, you should leave your world and come to mine. And the conversation just before he took his life was the first thing that the police saw when they opened up his phone after he killed himself.
You founded the Tech Justice Law Project, which specializes in making sure that legal and policy frameworks are in place and fit for the digital age. Now, technology is always evolving and at a rapid pace. Have you seen an increase against tech companies, especially when it comes to AI?
Absolutely. I think that it's difficult because it involves a lot of creative advocacy since we don't have laws to regulate AI within the United States. This is why, too, I think we're looking to our European partners who now have an AI Act in place that's coming into force to kind of work transnationally and to try to use the tools as best we can, because, we work in these national silos, and yet these companies are global in nature. But tech continues to be the one industry that evades not just accountability of any kind, but even a need to be transparent about what it's doing. I do feel a little bit that we as a society and we as a tech reform community were a bit blindsided by generative AI. We were so focused on trying to account for the harms of social media, particularly vis-a-vis children, that we just fell asleep at the wheel and didn't see what was happening with generative AI.
And if this case rules in Ms. Garcia's favor, how will this impact AI companies, developers? What would happen?
I think that the lawsuit would create an incentive, an external incentive for these companies to think twice before they rush to market with these products without considering the downstream consequences. The objective with this lawsuit has never been about the money. It's really been about trying to force change. And if you can't force change by, regulating companies because the political will is, captured by tech industry lobbies, well, then you have to force change through the courts.
Meetali Jain, that's a lot to take in. It is. We are in an ever-changing world. So thank you for talking to us.
Thank you so much.
We reached out to Character.AI for a statement. They wrote, "There is no ongoing relationship between Google and Character.AI. In August 2024, Character.AI completed a one-time licensing of its technology and no one went back to Google. Over the past 6 months, we have rolled out a suite of new safety features across our platform, designed especially with teens in mind. These features include modifications to our large language model, LLM, improvements to our detection and intervention systems for human behavior and model responses, and additional features that empower teens and their parents." We have launched a separate model for our teen users with specific safety features that place more conservative limits on responses from the model. Age is self-reported, as is industry standard across other platforms. We have tools on the web and in the app preventing retries if someone fails the age gate. The App Store assigns the age rating, not Character.AI. Model outputs. A classifier is a method of distilling a content policy into a form used to identify potential policy violations. We employ classifiers to help us enforce our content policies and filter out sensitive content from the model's responses. User inputs. While much of our focus is on the model's output, we also have controls to user inputs that seek to apply our content policies to conversations on Character.AI. Additionally, under 18 users are now only able to access a narrower set of searchable characters on the platform. Filters have been applied to this set to remove characters related to sensitive or mature topics. As we continue to invest in the platform, we will be rolling out several new features, including parental controls. I hope this episode of Now You Know has offered some insight into how to keep your child safe online, to make it a safe space where they can just have fun. A huge thank you to Megan Garcia and Meetali Jain for joining me today, and a special thanks to you for watching and listening to Now You Know.